The education of the student is a journey of all educational stakeholders. Parents, teachers, the administration, the district, the ministry, and the student play a role in the success of education. Our presentation seeks to touch upon all these stakeholders, with a focus on the leadership required for assessment to be a driving force of teacher and student success. Molded in the 7 actions and 10 competencies of Chapuis Italia 2010, and viewed from a leadership perspective, our presentation is divided into 3 parts. How to engage teachers, professional development of teachers, and assessment with teachers. First, we explore how to engage teachers, taking the leader's role beyond the classroom, taking into consideration the needs of the school district and the Ministry of Education. Leaders seek a balance between teacher autonomy, collaboration, oversight, and professional development. Delving further into professional development, Part 2 of our presentation guides leaders on the promotion and education of quality classroom assessment and data analysis. Leaders are tasked with providing outlets for teachers to hone assessment skills and use those assessments to further student success. Culminating in a view of the leader's role during assessment, Part 3 highlights the need for analysis and reflection in the assessment process. The strategy for analysis of assessment practice from the perspective of leadership and teacher is detailed, while reflection on the part of the student, teacher, and leadership is highlighted as important for analysis and refinement of assessment and overall educational practice. Reflection is key to the success of students and the education system, cementing the concept as one of our 5 guiding pillars displayed in our assessment rubric. In practice, used as a starting point for the discussion of assessment, the rubric displayed at the end of our presentation encapsulates the themes discussed. Guided by the indicators of sound classroom assessment in Chapuis Italia 2010, the rubric serves as an educational framework and ongoing reference point for teachers and leaders looking to improve assessment. Used in conjunction with the strategies outlined in the presentation, the rubric will help refine assessment knowledge and practice with the goal of student success. Leadership in implementing assessment design. Leadership requires a specific set of skills to ensure that the intended goal is achieved. This means that one has to lead by example and encourage others to follow the guidelines set to achieve the objective. Changing the assessment procedures requires collaboration between the teachers and their leader to ensure all steps of changing to a better assessment guideline are achieved. The first step of action is to balance the district's assessment systems to meet the needs of the classroom. In this action, teachers ought to be involved in decision making to determine the best assessment system to adopt for their class and the students' needs. Teachers will be required to provide an analysis of their current assessment approach, which will include targets measured, purpose, and time of year. This will be essential since it will provide background knowledge of the system used. The second step will be refining the achievement standards to ensure they show the expected outcome. The analysis developed in the first step will be used to determine areas that ought to be changed to improve the student's learning ability. The refined achievements will entail clear learning objectives, which will guide the teacher on what to test in exams. The information taught ought to be relevant, clear, realistic, and developmental to the students. This will be achieved by training the teachers on ways they can arrange their lessons and ensure they maintain relevance in class. The final step will be training teachers on how to ensure assessment quality to improve decision making. In addition, teachers will be trained on the need for enhancing effectiveness and accuracy in assessment design. The assessment should be used in determining the student's achievement or understanding of the course. Teachers will also be asked to keep records, which can be used to assess the progress of the students. Competency will be ensured in the classroom to make sure that accuracy and standards are met in the assessments. Teachers ought to develop assessments that are relevant to students. Teachers will be monitored to ensure they meet their responsibility of judging if assessment provided to students meets the objective and standards of the class. Development of testing exams will be carried out by all stakeholders involved in the education process of the students. A teacher must ensure that he or she sets clear targets, purpose, and sound design when developing assessments for students. This is essential since it will enable the teacher to examine the process of the students and determine what can be done to improve their understanding of the lessons. Teachers will be asked to provide a report after each assessment. The report should include the purpose, standards, and results obtained from the test. This will ensure that the teachers follow the set guidelines on assessments. The report provided will enable the leader to determine the reason for assessing the students, what was examined, how it was examined, communication plan used, and student involvement in the assessments. Students will also be examined to determine their needs in class. The leader can evaluate and help teachers learn to assess accurately and use the results to benefit student learning. The leader analyzes student assessment information accurately and uses the information to improve curriculum and instruction and assists teachers in doing the same. The leader also develops and implements sound assessment and assessment-related policies. Monitoring, analyzing, and refining assessment. We believe it is the role of school leaders to create educational environments that value a diverse range of assessment practices that include assessment as, for, and of learning, maintain a constructive, ongoing dialogue regarding student assessment practices, encourage collaboration between teachers to improve, refine, and reflect upon their assessment practices, as well as engage in professional development opportunities in assessment designed to meet the specific needs of the learning community. Allow for clear, positive, and two-directional communication between the educational professionals and parents, students, regarding assessment practices and philosophies. Set a high standards of practice among its staff to ensure students are afforded all possible manners of expressing their learning. Setting the stage for successful leadership. From the outset, in advance of any teacher evaluation assessment, school leaders will 1. Create a comprehensive assessment plan for his/her school. According to Chapuis Italia 2010, successful leaders have written a comprehensive assessment plan based on the 7 essential assessment actions, clarifying the purpose of assessment and how it fits into effective teaching and learning. This plan must align with district-level assessment policies. 2. Create a clear strategy for assessment of teacher practice, outlined in flowchart in our next slide. This creates a transparent approach to assessment and includes teacher participation, staff collaboration, and opportunities for reflection. Even with so many demands on teachers' time, it's absolutely necessary to pause and reflect to identify root causes and possible solutions. Datnow and Park 2015. Allows for examination of data to create positive changes. Leaders must provide the conditions for teachers to examine data deeply. Datnow and Park 2015. 3. Construct a rubric for assessment of teacher practice. Our rubric is outlined in the upcoming slides at the end of the presentation. Includes clear standards of practice. According to Chapuis Italia 2010, the school leader's responsibility is to be able to judge whether a given assessment adheres to these standards and creates consistent measures for assessment with common language, as well as sound assessment practice that supports learning, involves presenting evaluative criteria and models of work that illustrate different levels of quality. Strategy for analyzing teacher assessment practices. Here is our overview for analyzing teacher assessment practices that we will further deconstruct over the next 3 slides. Strategy deconstructed, a guiding document. According to Chapuis Italia 2010, successful leaders have written a comprehensive assessment plan based on the 7 essential assessment actions, clarifying the purpose of the assessment and how it fits into effective teaching and learning. Chapuis Italia 2010 also states, leadership for assessment balance and quality begins with a guiding vision, showing how assessment fits into and supports instruction. Well-developed rubrics communicate the important dimensions or elements of quality in a product or performance. McTighe and O'Connor, 2005. School leaders should understand the importance of quality assessment practices in the classroom and ensure an assessment-literate staff, both in the classroom and the principal's office. Chapuis Italia, 2010. Principals hold regular discussions with teachers about these practices and are capable of providing supportive, meaningful feedback to staff. Chapuis Italia, 2010. In the learning team model of professional development, teachers are provided the time and structure needed to concentrate on one topic long enough to internalize new and practical ideas for classroom use. Participants in assessment literacy learning teams often recognize and welcome the permission to focus on a long-term commitment to attain classroom assessment expertise rather than assessment that centers on prepping for the state test. Bullet 1. Understand assessment for learning strategies and support teachers as they incorporate strategies into their instruction. Assessment for learning is when students are engaged in their own learning journey. It is assessment that is done with students and not to them. Clear learning targets are developed, translated into student-friendly language, and shared with students. The role of the teacher is to support, coach, and mentor the students so they may achieve the targets. The teacher provides continued supportive and specific feedback that relates to the learning targets. This feedback is provided throughout the learning journey. Students are taught to be metacognitive about their learning. The successful school leader will understand the difference between assessment for and as learning and be able to provide examples of assessment for learning and its impacts. Bullet 2. Create systems where student progress and achievement is appropriately communicated within the school community. Feedback to students can be delivered in two ways: evaluative or descriptive. Descriptive feedback is the coaching and motivating students toward the learning targets. Evaluative feedback is the score or grade that relates to the level of mastery. The role of school leaders is to provide mentorship as teachers incorporate both types of feedback into their practice. Provide opportunities for teachers to communicate with parents. Communicate and inform parents regarding various forms of assessment. Understand the connection between standard-based assessment and standard-based reporting. Provide leadership and opportunity for teachers as they communicate with parents regarding student progress and achievement. Bullet 3. Understand the intended and unintended consequences of unethical and inappropriate student assessment. School leaders are responsible for promoting the appropriate use of good data when assessing student achievement and progress, and protecting the confidentiality of individual students, and monitoring test preparation to ensure ethical practices, i.e. not just teaching to the test, and providing an appropriate testing environment for students. Bullet 4. Plan, present, and provide targeted professional development to support sound assessment practices. Professional developments need to address both content, the what, and process, the skills. As leaders, it is important to understand and support instructional staff as they engage with new assessment strategies. School leaders have the learning target of building the assessment literacy of instructional staff. Chapuis Italia, 2010. Understand that understanding and implementing new assessment strategies is a long-term process. Assessment learning is not hard learning, but it is slow learning and requires sustained target support. Chapuis Italia, 2010. Provide resources. A key component of professional development includes collaboration with inter- and intra-school school groups. When developing a professional development plan, school leaders should consider areas that need to be addressed, develop guiding principles, develop learning targets, qualitative or quantitative, the learning process to be used, and strategies to promote success for all staff members. Differentiated the approach and dissemination of information. Chapuis Italia, 2010. Two models for professional development. First model is learning teams, which are research-based assessment, fosters collaboration, takes place over time, concentrated effort. Second, and then there's the workshop model, a one-off presentation that creates short-term excitement. With the model, there may or may not be sufficient time to change practice. Supporting teacher learning teams are preferred because they will promote long-term change that will support student achievement. To ensure success, leaders need to 1. Create and support a culture of professional development. Teachers as learners and school leaders need to remove barriers and promote professional growth for them. 2. Leaders need to create an understanding of the process. They need to promote the collaboration of all group members and remember that there is no expert. It is important for leaders to remember that learning teams will go through various challenges and that they need to support the team through this. 3. Develop skills for self-directed learning. Leaders need to support teachers as they build their own collaborative and professional development skills. This way, teachers are engaged in their own professional development. 4. Leaders need to provide appropriate facilitators to support the learning team. An effective facilitator will act as a mentor and develop an inclusive environment for all group members. They should also assist in the transferring of new knowledge into classroom practice. 5. Leaders also need to provide support to facilitators by creating an environment where facilitators can thrive through supporting learning networks, hosting meetings to share ideas, and providing mini lessons to deepen understanding of concepts. 6. Finally, a good school leader is an engaged leader. School leaders should lead by example as they set the tone and climate of the building. They should protect professional development time, celebrate teacher growth and accomplishment, and set clear learning goals for their staff. Finally, perhaps it is most important for school leaders to remember that implementing new assessment strategies is a long-term process. Chapuis states that while assessment learning is not hard learning, it is slow learning and it requires sustained and targeted support. In the remaining slides, you will find our rubric for assessing teacher assessment practice.